Hit the lights.
You've discovered the Halfwatt podcast. We want to educate and entertain by tapping into the most trusted source of new technology, the ones installing and innovating it. You, the tradespeople that build from the ground up. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, veteran contractors, and even some young blood.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Long time no here for a new podcast. We had to change studios, so we're in our new studio. I call it a studio. Looks like a conference room. Don't be confused. It's a studio. We're at the training center in Wilsonville, and the Clackamas Community College has graciously allowed us to use one of their rooms here, so we continue our podcast. Tyler had to move out of the studio, and so we are kind of mobile, which I think makes it probably more fun. And since there's a boatload of students right down the hall, what could possibly go wrong? So all of you guys who are listening to this podcast, I'm not going to tell you what room we're in yet, but at some point you'll figure it out, and then we can get a line of people out the door. So my guest tonight is Tracy Teutsch from Will Work. I almost said that correctly. Real Work. Hi, Tracy.
Hi there. Thank you guys for having me back.
How are you doing? Man, how are you doing?
Doing good.
So tell us where you're at, because we had a big, brouhaha. What, last night? No,
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago.
Yeah.
Would have been Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And about sort of, encompassing where we're at. So let's tell the audience where you're at.
Yeah. So we are having the fun of building a platform.
Okay.
And so since the core of the Real Work business is all about the people, it's all about the trades.
The peeps.
That's where we're starting. Yeah. So I've always said for years and years, it's all about the people, and I really genuinely mean that. Yep. So
I'd say so.
Where we're starting, of course, that's why you and I might get along so well. But so what we're doing right now.
I like people. They're good.
Yeah.
They
You're
taste
good.
good.
With people.
Right. Oh.
Yeah. So actually what we've been doing is reach out to some of our great folks, some of the electricians and the trades and technical people we know. And so we kind of, no offense, but we picked our favorites.
Picked our faves.
We picked our favorites, and we are starting to just build out the platform, having people put in profiles and getting feedback on, okay, how did that work? What can we do better? What is glitchy? Is everything working okay? Basically, you launch a technology platform, and then you go, okay, how did that work?
So really they're beta test folks. I mean, they really are beta testing it.
Absolutely.
And there is an incentive when at the end of this, for the beta folks that are involved, they get a amount of stock, which I think is awesome.
Yes.
And
I always say rising tides lift all boats, right? Let's.
Yep. And two of the beta testers are here in the studio with me today, so I appreciate their input.
Absolutely.
And so how? Besides that, and we know that the platform's set up for our trade, but it's also for other trades as well now.
Correct. Absolutely.
So what are some of the other trades?
So we've got everything from, let's see, and in fact, we're kind of even looking to expand out a little bit, but we've already got, we've got plumbing, we've got electricians, we've got a lot of construction trades. So everything from painters, drywallers, anything that makes up construction. And so we really tried to focus on service and, of course, construction.
Nice.
And so repair and maintenance. We also have, get more specific, of course, in our beloved fire alarm industry. So, of course, we have inspectors.
Of course.
We can't forget them. And so we basically have those high-level trades and then the specialties dialed in within that. Okay. And what we're playing with right now is making sure that we have the licenses and certifications, that we have the database built out for you. Okay. And so really trying to see what we can do to simplify. Ultimately, we really want to help simplify. That'll take a little while. But for now, it's making sure that our database is there, that all the licenses and certs that you guys have are in the database, and making sure that if there's any gaps, we're putting them in.
So on the the Zoom meeting we had,
Yeah.
there were a lot of questions fielded by folks, including Colton from Oklahoma, who left Oregon to move to Oklahoma.
And he
work.
realized I haven't done Oklahoma's yet.
Right, and he was quick to point that out,
which is great.
But he said, I want to see the company, prosper and all that good stuff too.
Yeah.
But a lot of folks
really smart, Colton. If you're listening, you are smart. Yeah,
he's on it.
Appreciate that.
And he's a dynamite technician as well, which I because he and I talk a lot. Another guy who wasn't able to make that particular meeting is a guy who started his own company. We've had on before. Dakota Farmer.
Yeah.
So he called me.
I
the
wanted
next
to
day.
meet him.
Yeah, he's impressive. He's really quite impressive.
Yeah.
Him and Kieran. Now Kieran was on the call,
and he asked some questions. He asked some really good questions.
And they both started their own company roughly the same time.
Yeah.
Kieran is Halfwatt Electric.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to think that we influenced it, but we didn't. We just happened.
You guys were just both brilliant in your own ways.
We happened to cross paths. But he's one of them, and then Farmer Fire Protection is the other, and Dakota just happens to be a little bit further down the line because he started his company earlier and is out there. Well, he and I talk, I think probably once every 2 weeks or so. Like when he calls, I pick up the phone like I do for almost anybody else, and where he's at is he basically opened our eyes to ways to, for example, do fire alarm drawings with a product that automatically calculates everything you put on it, depending on whatever brand you use. So if it's Firelight, you can drag these devices over and automatically calculates everything in
cool.
it.
Yeah,
it's gold. So he can do drawings and get submittals out the door in like 3 hours, and by himself. Is a one-man show.
So where is Dakota Farmer? Or don't tell me specifically because we don't need to record that. But is he local?
He is. He lives here in Portland.
Okay.
He lives just outside of Portland.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Yeah. And he's on his game for that. So he called me the next day and said I was working. He was actually out doing work at night up until like 8 o'clock that night.
And his dog ate his homework.
Dog ate his homework.
The drawings. Is that what it was? Yeah.
So he's hot to do it. So we're hoping that you can do a Zoom record and package something like that we can send back out to everybody who was a part of that initial group that we chose.
And one of the things that was so fun about that for me is that when I have designed on a whiteboard for years with all of the things that I know, all the things that I experienced, all the things that I watched, but then getting to the point where you're launching it and then get real world feedback to make sure that the things you were looking at are actually valuable and will help people, right? And so it was so much fun for me to be talking to the awesome people that I want to support and I want to help. And so it was great to have people say, hey, what about, have you thought about, or what about? And for me, that's like my love language. What about is like my happy place, because I absolutely love thinking about, well, what could we do with that? Is there something we could make better? Or could we simplify something here? So that was a great meeting. I was so happy
and Sean hit you up with a lot of questions.
Which I love.
Which at the end of it, we thought about that. We're like, that was pretty impressive because everybody, first off, you fielded them well.
Thank you.
And there was a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
And like these two guys tonight, they're like, "Whoa, we're sorry, we're both, we both missed the thing for whatever reason."
It. No, it's
we're
okay.
Like, no, we'll be okay.
Love you anyway.
And so I think that enthusiasm, that bit of enthusiasm that everybody showed once the talked about the product and how I don't want
the intent, right? Hopefully where we're going and what we want to do,
and even the jurisdictional issues that happen around the sound with
Absolutely.
Because for those of you who don't know. In Oregon, there are some jurisdictional requirements to do work. You have to have a Portland Certificate of Fitness if you're going to do Sprinkler Monkey work here. Oregon LEA, Washington obviously has its ELO 6 and NICET 2 requirements to do fire alarm. I happen to be an ADO 6, so I can do administrator work up there. So those licenses all work. But then if you go to Vancouver, you have other licenses to do in Vancouver.
Exactly.
And everybody was kind of pointing that out, and you went, oh. Wait till you work around Everett and Seattle itself.
And have I told you about Bellevue and Seattle? And we just like to keep it interesting. But it's so funny because I've had so much interaction with with AHJs over the years, authorities having jurisdiction for, everybody that's listening probably knows that. But, having dealt with them, I appreciate that they are trying to do the best they can with what they know and with what they see in their jurisdiction and how they're trying to support, And so I don't look at it with disrespect. Everybody's trying to do the best they can, right? And so those are just spaces where I really foresee in the goals that we have are to help work with them as well and to figure out how we can just help close some of those gaps for people.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that, and I don't want to pick on LNI because LNI but LNI is a different animal. And to work with LNI in Washington is a different animal. They don't screw around. Yeah, they're very cut and dry when they come out on site to do work, to do inspections and stuff like that. It's Washington has a different set of standards than most other states. So you can work in Washington, you can practically work anywhere because it is, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that
you're
lightly,
right.
Because it's a pain in the ass to work up there. It really is.
I know. I personally was doing most of the research on the licenses and the certifications, and in part, because I am a startup, and anybody who has started their own business understands what that means. It means, most people like to eat and get paid. Usually it's the paid, then they can eat in that order. So, there's a lot of things I do myself.
It does help.
It does help. But one of the things that was so interesting to me is, of course, I'm very familiar with my jurisdictions were Seattle, Bellevue, Redmond. Those were the areas that I did a lot of work in. So I was very familiar with the complexities of just managing certifications and licenses there. So it was fascinating to go out and extend out to, okay, what does Idaho look like?
Right.
What does Wyoming look like? What does Utah look like? And just navigating different states' requirements was fascinating. And I'm kind of weird, so I love the complexities. It's just like, whoa, what a complex regulatory landscape. And so how do we, there is space there we can help. There are spaces we can make things better, right? And so it was intriguing. So I just keep working my way out and trying to make sure that I'm looking at, the counties and the cities and just doing the best I can to research.
And most people don't realize that the city can, like, for example,
Seattle,
Redmond.
Redmond.
So Redmond is where I got my fine at. And I wasn't even on the job. I wasn't even working there. I happened to be a supervising electrician and supervising a branch of people doing work. And the guy in that branch did work that I wasn't even aware of. And so it doesn't matter when the law comes down. You've put your name on the dotted line, so you're responsible for that. So I got the fine. In fact, I just talked to a mutual friend of ours who just got one as well. So when you go into that system and understand the way that LNI works and the way that they're not messing around, man. That report and that citation went, when they decided they were going to try to push back, went right to the AG.
They are the keepers of the rules.
They absolutely are.
Got to have keepers of the rules.
The AG did their job. The paralegal got a hold of me. She said, "This is how it's going to work." And when we had the pretrial hearing with the judge, he said,
"Sorry, pretrial sounded very scary for a minute."
This was exactly what happened.
Okay, go ahead.
The judge sat down. I was at the Cosmo, comp room at the Cosmo in Vegas on vacation. When
that
I had
part
this
sounded
pretrial.
fun. The other part, okay, go back to the pretrial.
Yeah, it was kind of stark because it's a beautiful room.
Yeah.
Beautiful accommodations. I'm there with my family. We're all having a good time. Well, they're all having a good time. And I'm sitting on the phone listening to this judge who says, "This is how it's going to work, okay? You're going to show up in a suit and a tie with your NEC or NFPA 70. You're going to be here at this time. You're going to bring your checkbook. And we're going to do this. Ooh. And I was like, okay, that sounds fantastic. See you there. And when everybody disconnected, I talked to the gentleman who was running the branch where this all happened, and he said, "We'll pay it." Just like that. We'll pay the fine. I said that because I've been pushing them to do just that for several months. Yeah. And the paralegal for the attorneys general was very frank with me, and she said, "This is how this goes. If LNI writes up a citation, and they don't do that without having all the justifications, all the ducks in a row, then it goes all the way through."
Keepers of the rules.
Yeah, it's keepers of the rules.
Go back to the keepers of the rules.
And so, I certainly can't be upset with them. I mean, the guy did his job, and the guy who did the work. And I tell you how simple the work was. It was a parts and smarts job. So for those of you who are in the fire alarm industry, parts and smarts is where a contractor will sell a job, and the electricians on site are going to do all the wiring. All you're going to do is provide the parts and do the programming. You may do terminations in the panel. You may do the panel terminations. That may be a part of it and may not be a part of the scope. Then you're going to turn the thing on, and you're going to have the electricians troubleshoot what they can troubleshoot and work with them. But what you're not going to do is you're not going to be the people who land the wires on the monitor modules, for example. And what the inspector hit, this was a parts and smarts job for one tamper and one flow switch. Okay? And the guy wired, the electrician working on the job was incompetent and could not wire a water flow and a tamper switch. I'm not kidding you. 2 monitor modules. So the guy from the company I worked for just reached over and said, like, it goes like this.
And somebody was there.
No. When they came back, when the inspector showed up, he says, "Who did this?" And the electrician said, "Him." And that was into that. Just like that. That's how fast the citation happened.
Oof.
So, yeah. So I got a call. I was in the beloved state of Oregon on the coast, minding my own business as I do, driving back when I get this call from this inspector who's pissed. He's like, are you Mike Brooks? I said, yeah, well, I was this morning. And he goes, well, you're in a world of hurt. I just cited you for, all these things. I'm like, wow, who the hell are you? Well, I'm the inspector in Redmond. I said, Redmond what? Redmond, Oregon? What the hell's going on in Redmond, Oregon? I'm not working at Redmond, Oregon. Man, I just drove back from, who is this? One of those kind of calls. And then he straightened it all out.
Okay.
And
I was thinking, did that help?
No.
I mean, it was just a guess.
I will tell you how fast I pulled my 8006 out from underneath that company. The next day, at 8:00 in the morning, I was up in Vancouver, paying the money to pull that license back out. And the reason was that the company had 3 branches, so I was the supervising electrician for all 3. That I was not made aware of. What I thought I was a supervising electrician was this branch. L&I doesn't distinguish branches. Therefore, if you're the signing authority in Washington, you're the signing authority for all of Washington. There is no division of, we happen to be in Redmond or you happen to be in Spokane. Shame on me. Ignorance is what caused this.
Well, but it's also it's a perfect illustration, though. The reality is there's a lot of complexities.
There's a lot of complexities.
It's one of those where you can have all of the right licenses and certifications to do a job in downtown Bellevue and not be able to cross the lake and do that same job without getting another certification, right?
Exactly.
So the regulatory environment is complex.
Yeah.
And that, as you know, it really impacts both sides. It's both the workers and the employers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because for the most part, we're just trying to get it right.
Yeah.
And it's complex. And so it's hard for people to stay on top of.
It is.
I even talked to actually a VP of a large national company. Mm-hmm. And he talked about how complex it is. If they land a job in Wyoming and they've got a couple of really great techs out in California who are really skilled at doing all the programming on whatever panel they just sold, right? So they're thinking they're going to fly somebody out there for, a month to get through all the programming, and they're happy to do it. And then they get out there and realize that whatever, local jurisdiction is handling that particular project, oh no, your guy doesn't actually have all the right qualifications to be working here. So it's really a very complex issue for both sides of the aisle.
And you can understand Wyoming's point. And
actually, there's like 3 sides of the aisle. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because then the people, like the customer's caught in the middle between the two. The customer's like, I hired you. Now you're telling me I can't get this work done. Yeah.
And it's funny. I remember I used to work with this absolutely lovely guy. This is always how I talk. Sorry, you guys have to get used to it. But I worked with this lovely guy, and he was doing project management on a job in Wyoming. And one of the things, and he was from Seattle, and one of the things that was so interesting is that because of the way the weather works, where that data center was being built, they actually did have some really complex issues that because the weather could be really extreme through that area, so the local jurisdiction has some requirements that you wouldn't have in Seattle.
Sure.
You know, our weather, and the same for Portland, like our weather here is pretty moderate. We don't get a lot of extremes with wind and things. So also some of those requirements are because of, you know, something in the local area that's different.
That you wouldn't think of.
Yeah, that somebody from, you know, Washington may not know.
Yeah,
right?
or like in Oklahoma,
Yes.
where there's tornado warnings. You have a fire system, plus there's tornado built into a lot of these systems.
Yeah,
where you have
I'm
to program
sure,
them
right?
in, some sort of warning system. And I know that I actually worked on a fire system here in Malala one time that was a Midwestern fire system. I'd never even seen one before or since, and it had a tornado mode. And I was like, what does this do? Like,
did you try pressing the button?
Of course
just
I
to
did.
see?
I'm an electrician.
What does it do?
Hi, everybody hold still. And push the button and see if I want to see if a tornado was going to pop up, which it did not.
Does that come with the panel, or is that like extra?
No tornado showed up.
No?
But
Okay.
it did a different sound on the sound. It didn't do temporal like 3. It did a whole different type of wail.
Okay.
That was unique.
Yeah.
And that was the for that jurisdiction or wherever that thing came from, that was the sound.
Exactly.
So you would have fire alarms, right? So you'd have a temporal 3 if that's the type of occupancy it is, and then you'd have a separate set of alert to let you know, hey, you know, because you don't want people. If you do temporal 3, that means get the heck out.
Yes.
You
don't want them out at that point.
You don't want go out,
Buckle
get
down,
sucked
get
up.
under a table.
What happened?
I don't know.
Like the tornado thing went off, the fire line went off, so we all went outside and got sucked up in the vortex of hell.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And then we've landed in the next state.
Yeah, that was the wrong button.
Yeah. So all those.
Those are exactly like those are great examples of why there are so many differences in different jurisdictions. It depends on what kind of things get built there, what kind of weather they have.
So you have to navigate
a lot of complexities.
You have to navigate all that with this website.
And you know what's very crazy is I find that really interesting.
I could get into that.
I find it really compelling. It's like, okay, interesting.
No, I could get into that though.
You know, and so really doing our part then to ultimately help with bringing some of those pieces together to help support the industry. Right?
I like that.
And so I've had a ton of fun. Like, again, my version of fun is not everyone's. I get that. But I've really been fascinated with digging into the differences in the states and navigating that.
What do you do? Are there any special requirements on federal jobs? Like you got Joint Base Lewis McChord, which is no small itty bitty facility, plus Bangor, plus and also Bremerton and Whidbey Island and all that. So
absolutely.
So are there different license requirements?
Well, there's different like security clearances. There are things that you can run into on different military bases, depending on what level or what buildings you're accessing.
But does this help? Can your system help
today or in a year? Those are things that we want to do. Yeah.
So if I'm going to work on Bangor, you can't just walk onto the base. They frown on you. Turns out that they frown on you just walking around sub bases. Who knew?
I've noticed that too.
Yeah, they get a little upset.
Yeah, I know.
But that's a good point.
Yeah.
So you could actually say, hey, look, folks who work on federal, because we got people here who work at PANG, the Portland National Guard, and there's a couple of little facilities here that have some pretty
high security.
High security. Yeah, don't screw around in here. Intel, but yeah, I can see that. That's good stuff.
It's funny because for me, truly the core of the site is the people. And so start with the people, and then what are the challenges that we face? What are the challenges the industry faces? And so how can we help support our folks? How can we help support our people to be able to give ultimately more flexibility in their world?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the complexity of the landscape is fascinating to me. But one of the things you and I talked about actually on the last podcast was also the difference in, and I wonder if you were talking about Colton. I wonder if Colton had any of this feedback when he moved to Oklahoma. Was he originally from here? Or okay, because I know you were also talking about there being a difference in quality. depending on what the requirements are for licensing. So, of course, Washington and Oregon are pretty heavy when it comes to licensing requirements. They take it pretty seriously. We've got some big cities. We need to make sure that, our buildings don't catch on fire.
Sure.
Things like that. We like to, put a lot of thought into that. But some other jurisdictions are looser with their requirements. And so it's been really fascinating too. How do we help? And these are spaces. It's like I keep debating on how far I'm going to talk about our path where we want to go, but also helping people both navigate that and help to provide some support for moving. Right?
Okay,
and some support.
So let me see if I understand you right. So let's suppose I live in Portland and I want to go to Seattle for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Your site might be able to help me figure out what the jurisdictional requirements are and say Bothell, and I'm going to move to Bothell. So
down the road, that's exactly what we want to do. Exactly.
Okay, so then I could look and see, hey,
things.
If you're going to move to Bothell and you're going to work in the vicinity of Bothell, in the next 20 miles around Bothell, you're going to have that's
cool. Particularly because some of the things as we work through, some of the things that we want to really dial into is, as different trades have different requirements, have different certifications, have different licenses, right? And of course, different zip codes have different requirements, right? And so there is just so much.
Well, and once you get out of a city, or if you get out of a certain jurisdiction and you get out to the county, that can be a different requirement.
Absolutely.
Completely different in the county from the city limits. Like Vancouver is different than Clark County. You get to Clark County, it's a different world. It's still under Washington, but not under the city of Vancouver and their fire marshal. So.
I used to do fire alarm designs, so I would always lay them out, and then but
you're my hero.
I was very familiar with how to lay out systems and codes and drawings, and that was something that was really eye-opening too, that you could cross over to a different jurisdiction. I had the greatest example. I had how many complexes? I think I'd picked up like 4 different. I was in sales. Let me be clear. I was selling things, but I had 4 different.
Audience doesn't need to know you were a salesperson. That's all right.
But I'm a nice one.
Hey, Tyler, erase that part.
Sorry, did he take that off? Yeah.
No. I'm just teasing.
But I was very into the detail. I really do love the detail of things. So I wasn't somebody who could wing it and just go, "Oh, you fix it when it's done." I couldn't do it. I had to know how long the runs were. I wanted to make sure that the circuits were going to work.
But you did.
I really cared about that stuff.
Between watching the 3 of you work, because I've been at your office and I watched you work. Carrie and I watched you guys do your thing. It was like a work of art. Like if every salesperson, general manager, and project coordinator or project manager all got together and had the same types of meetings that we watched you have, we wouldn't have a problem in this industry. Honest to God.
If you saw what you could, what a beautiful riser diagram you can create with just a whole bunch of highlighter pens to make sure it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. But it was fascinating, doing just these 4 different. They were the exact same type of sites. They were apartments, so multifamily, and had about the same number of buildings, really laid out the same. And in each one of those jurisdictions, the design was completely different.
No kidding.
Yeah. One of them wanted, of course, a panel per building. One of them had to have a master panel, and then all of them feed back. Everything was different.
Everything was different.
Yeah. And so even that, you have to know what the jurisdictions want.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of data to keep in your head.
And that one was comical to me. That was such a perfect illustration for the variations.
Perfect example.
And of course, because of my obsessive detail, I call every jurisdiction also and look at to make sure. But those are things that we also run into on so many different levels, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
That I just went down a rabbit hole with that. But
my hope too is somebody like me who will literally very ridiculously spend a long time drawing a riser diagram in highlighter to make sure that I understood how the riser was going to work and where things needed to land. Yeah. The whole point is to take all that complexity and to be able to funnel it through and to be able to simplify it for people. Right. And so there is so much information to go through and to funnel.
Could you elaborate on this just for a second?
Yeah.
Just kids, I want you to hear the next step here, okay? So you're telling me as a salesperson that you sat down and helped design. Hold
yes,
on now.
Please
This gets
go.
better.
My favorite.
Your GM was involved because she's the one, and this was Nikki at the time. Love you, Nikki. This is the one who was going to put the manpower and the resources to it at the right time and make sure that all that stuff was put together and ran the office, right? You did the sales and the part of the engineering.
Don't forget about Carissa.
And what did Carissa do?
Carissa was huge.
Was the person who put it all together, all the pieces, parts.
And Carissa was actually the one who always had her sights on all the manpower.
Oh, so
because
she
was
did the
running all the
manpower
jobs.
aspect of it.
Yeah, because she was running all the jobs. So
Well, Nikki just didn't make coffee. What the hell else did she do?
she did a lot of things. Totally, all respect, right? Because she was also
She
she
made
had the
great coffee,
service.
though.
She had the service department, the inspections department. She had
But
a
when,
lot of
but
things.
when you guys were interfacing,
so we were
what was her role in that function? Like, how was she just overseeing it and making sure that you two were on the same page, or?
No, I'm trying to remember. Hers would probably be. I mean, some of those conversations were a transition because she had been involved with a lot of projects early on with me.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to remember specifically, but that may have been in some of that period too,
Because
where Nikki had been
what I'm
very
trying
involved.
to point out is that all of my
Like
installers,
we all collaborated
Yes,
and made sure
yes,
that
yes.
all of the decision makers were in the room at the same time.
Yes. So that you as an
Yes.
an installer, here's an installer right here, aren't walking out in the
Yes.
field, right?
Yes.
With half of what the hell you need, a third of the time that you
Yeah.
need, and not a clue as to what's going on. And,
Correct.
And I would love to say that, every company does that. That is bullshit because every single project I watch go. I knew that, the salespeople had the right intentions, the PMs and PCs had the right intentions, the management had the right intentions, the labor had the right intentions, but
Yeah.
it was like cats with their tails tied together when you threw it out in the real world. And so, I was impressed. One of the reasons that I, obviously we're still friends and acquaintances and, in some aspects business partners, is because
Yes.
I so learned from watching the collaboration and the collaborative efforts that happened in that branch up in Bothell that I was astounded with that. And Carrie and I immediately came down and went, we have to do it like this. And it was a real struggle. It was a real struggle to make that happen.
And you know what's funny is that was so much fun though, because there's actually one other
enjoyable.
element too, was that I was also very connected always with our technicians. So if I knew that somebody was going to be working on that project, most likely, I also talked to them about it. And so there was all collaboration before that job was ever bid.
Wow.
And so there was also, I can design a fire alarm system. I know how to do that. But at the same time, there is always value from all those different perspectives, right? Because you have a lot of different aspects of putting a project together and a lot of different players that have to come together to really execute it properly, right?
Everybody's got to know what the game plan is.
And so, I always love to tell my beginning story in construction was kind of comical. Like they put me into a project manager role. Did I ever tell you? I probably did. I have a fine arts degree, right?
Oh,
Yay!
big timer.
Right?
You should be a lieutenant in the Navy. Oh my God.
You know what? That's why I drew such great riser diagrams, right? That my art background came out. But holy cow, I knew nothing about a fire alarm system. I didn't understand the first thing about how to run a circuit. I didn't know what a voltage drop was. I remember. So I had technicians who would draw pictures for me, and engineers and people who helped train me and help teach me. And so for me, in fact, can I just tell one side
Please.
story? So thank you.
This is your
Did you
time.
see how I just jumped right on
Saw
that? I
that.
hardly even waited for a
didn't even
response.
wait, you just went.
I know. I wanted to tell it. One of my favorite stories ever was when I was a newbie in construction, and I had the greatest technician ever and loved him. I was working at Simplex, and he was a great tech, and we were working on a project for Microsoft at the time, and it was many years ago, so I was young.
Can you say his name? Or is it,
he was awesome. Roy Weschelberger.
Okay.
And Roy went on, then became a director of did all of the fire alarm systems and managed them out at Microsoft.
Okay.
Yeah, they stole him. But he's had a great career. Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was just awesome. He
Oh
was
man,
a great
if you
guy.
got a chance to work for Microsquish, you jump. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He jumped. But great tech. And also just hysterical. We had a great time together. So I was very young in the industry, and I had an old school PM from Cochrane Electric. Sorry, love you all, but I had to call that out. Who thought for sure that he had a really easy access to take advantage of me for a change order.
Okay.
And so he gave me this huge bid for adding one smoke detector in an area that already had smoke detectors. Okay, so they just wanted us to add one more. And by the way, it was a drop ceiling. Okay, and he gave me a bid for, and this is a long time ago, for like $1,500 to add one smoke detector. By the way, I was providing the smoke detector, right? That wasn't even included, right? And so he was claiming that to run open wire, no conduit, run a smoke detector, not more than run wire for a smoke detector, put a box in, and wire up one smoke detector was going to cost $1,500.
Wow.
And that was did I mention that? Okay, a long time ago.
Is it a solid gold smoke detector?
Yeah, but I was providing the smoke. It must have been solid gold wiring. I don't know.
Something solid.
And so I went out. So Roy, Roy's like, no, come on. So we go out there and we look, and literally, you guys, it's drop ceiling, it's open wiring.
So
there's a
super
smoke
easy.
detector right over here. It's not like there's a firewall that they're like drilling a hole through and patching with fire. No, it freaking was open. I mean, there's already wire that's running in that direction, right? So anyway,
There's a service loop up there with 15
oh my
feet
God,
of wire
it
on
was so
to go in
hysterical.
there.
And so at the same time, I'll try to shorten up the story, but at the same time, there was something else, another job we were working on with them at Microsoft, something they missed. So I decided to give them back just as big of a change order, actually maybe just a little bigger, just for fun, and shot that back over for my other. And I'll never forget, Roy is standing in my office. It was the greatest conversation ever. Roy is standing behind me, and we're both just trying super hard not to laugh. As the PM calls me up, and he's like, Tracy, I got your change order. Oh, good. Okay, great. So did you want to issue a PO for that? Or, I did even one better. And I said, and by the way, don't worry about adding the smoke detector on the other TI, since it looked like that was going to be a lot. So I just hired a sub who could just quickly run that last little circuit board. So I just wanted to let you know you don't have to worry about it.
Oh,
and he's like, Tracy, you can't do that. You can't. Well, no, I can't. Because you understand. Like, I'm just looking out for the best interest of my company, just like you are, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so did you want to just send over the PO for that change order? And you can just hear him backpedaling. Roy is standing behind me, and we're both like having a mute because we're just laughing so hard. And so anyway, he comes back with Tracy, you know what? Construction is a really relationship kind of an industry. Sometimes you're going to make a mistake. Sometimes I'm going to make a mistake. So how about this? I got an idea. Oh. And he said, how about this? You know what? We'll just do that smoke detector for free.
We'll just do it.
We'll just go ahead. Don't worry. We'll just do it for free. We'll cover the gold wire.
We'll even use our own smoke detector. How's that?
And he's like, how about and then you could do this other one for free. And we'll do, because we're going to work together a lot. I'm like, that's a good idea. Yeah. Okay. I'm in. And so, okay, great. So he hangs up, and Roy and I just bust out laughing. It was like one of my happy moments. But anyway, really the whole illustration is that technicians have always been the reason that I was able to be successful in all of those roles.
Nice.
So for me, it's always been just a natural that it really is all about the people, right?
It is.
And so the success of our jobs really was all about that collaboration between everybody. Yep. And so we all had lots of conversation. But
it
was also really efficient. That was a beautiful thing.
Simplex wasn't a small company when you were up there. So you had a lot of technicians working for you.
We did.
And of course this was in Simplex Simplex was still privately
It was still
owned.
when it was private.
Yeah.
That's when I started.
I just went to school back east, and they had a picture
in Worcester.
No,
was I out there?
No, they moved it to another place. But
I was kidding.
Westminster.
Westminster.
It wasn't even there because they moved it from another place besides that. So it's actually closer to Boston.
Okay.
But they had the three original. They always had the picture of the three owners, Chris and
the generations.
The generations of people who owned the company, right?
It was pretty awesome.
But it was a different feeling when it was there before Tyco bought it, and then eventually JCI. Now I'm not saying it's bad because I got good training and had a good time, and I love the company and stuff. But they, that there was a collaborative effort that you're talking about at that level.
Yeah. And
every single company that I've worked for, and I've now worked for several, you sometimes get that collaborative effort, and sometimes you don't. And when you don't get the collaborative effort, it becomes a real issue.
Absolutely.
When you go out to install, especially for the technicians.
Yeah.
Now, how the technician handles it, I've seen technicians who you cannot budge. Like, they're just like, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be like this. It's always going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to worry about it. To technicians who are bouncing off the wall going, I needed 50 widgets and you gave me 49 widgets. I can't do the job because I don't have the 50th widget. I mean, I've seen, you always get the from one extreme to the other.
Absolutely.
But the more collaborative you are, and the more that you know exactly what's going on, and then if you add on top of that what we already talked about earlier, jurisdictional requirements. Oh, well, shoot. Now the gene pool of people who can work in this particular jurisdiction is down to 3, and those 3 are busy doing this, and I need them in July, and I won't have them available until August, and now I'm pushing dates and moving things around. That's the real crux of managing and being in this, in any, it doesn't matter if you're doing access control, doesn't matter if you're doing cameras, it doesn't matter if you're doing fire alarm systems. That is the real crux of the issue, is keeping your contractors on the ball, your technicians on the ball, your PM and your PC on the ball, your management on the ball, yourself on it.
Yeah.
Wherever you fit into that mess, and that's a real issue. And so, in my humble opinion, having worked now for several companies and going back into on the other side of the fence, I look at it this way: you got the contracting side of the fence and then the owner side of the fence. So I've been on both sides of the fence.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
The dogs chase you from either side. Like, it's not, grass isn't greener on the ownership side because you're dealing with contractors.
Yeah.
So when you're an owner dealing with a set of contractors, and the set of contractors may or may not be living up to your expectations, there's not a whole lot you can do in this environment. So, okay, well, you keep sending me, this particular individual who's not necessarily up to par, and I can't do anything about it. You know what I'm saying? But when you get the right relationship going,
yeah,
and I happen to work in a company that has that, where things work correctly and we can move forward,
which is great.
There's nothing like it.
I know.
There's nothing like it. So you would think that
I love
everybody,
the synergy part.
Yeah,
right.
But you would think that this would be something every contractor, every company would want. Like, you would think that
we're here for training. If you're interested, I'm sure we can.
Oh my God. You would think having, with all the years I've been doing this, you would think this is a no-brainer.
It's also far more fun.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be blunt, it's actually just far more fun to collaborate. God. It's so much more efficient and fun, and so it's also kind of mind blowing to me
it is kind of mind-blowing.
Isn't a natural. Yeah. It isn't the natural.
It is. You're exactly right.
But one of the things that I think play into that is that, and I can promise this was true for Nikki, this was true for Carissa, this was true for me. We truly valued everybody who was playing a part of that project.
Yeah,
so it wasn't just a passive or a that's so cute, nice, okay, you go out and do your thing. No, it was like a genuine, we understood that you don't get things like that done. You don't build big things without every person on that team. And so if you forget the value of the individuals that are on that team, everything drops. The value drops, the quality drops, the fun drops. The reality is that if you truly do respect the players, then you respect what they're doing, and you naturally make sure that they're in the loop on communication, right? So I think there's a lot of layers of what really bring that collaboration and the synergy and all of that together.
So, kids, the reason we took that
kids.
The reason we
our
took
little happy sidebar.
That little
because
sidebar
we're starting a business and we're going to train.
Because we're starting a business here, and you can see,
business,
you can see that when you have your head in this game, and it doesn't matter. It really honestly doesn't matter. You could be making widgets. You could have a factory full of widget making people out there cranking out widgets.
Good widgets.
But when you work with the factory and you work with the widget manufacturers, you work with how the people do what they do, and you don't pound them into submission. You don't come at it like this is my house, my domain. This is the way it's going to work. You will get this synergy that works out.
I mean, isn't it just the basic too? If you genuinely respect the other party, that's how you get the respect back. Bingo. Right? And so it's so simplistic when you say it. It almost seems like why doesn't everybody know that or understand that? But that truly the corny side of all of real work really did come from the very genuine respect for everybody who keeps everything running.
I agree.
And I also always think it's funny when there are people who think, oh, I could do that if I tried and if I learned. I'm like, no, you can't. No, you're not that good. You can't.
But my experience was exactly that. Because when you go into management, you have an idea of what you're looking for, and then you realize, then you get in this quagmire, and it isn't. I don't like to manage. I would much rather coach. Okay, so if I have to coach a team of people, but I can't change the players on the team, this is a real issue. It's a real issue. It doesn't matter whether you're playing, whatever sports balls you like, whatever sports balls analogy you want, football or baseball or whatever the other damn balls are. If you're a manager or you're a coach, or you should be a coach of that team, but you don't have any control over how you're going to move the players on the team or who you're going to put on the field, who you're going to take off, and all those things because of idiotic rules and personalities and all the bat squeeze that surrounds you, that when you're in a position to manage and you're in a position to change, that flips the script on what we're talking about. And I've hit that on several of my podcasts. I've hit, hey, when big mega corporations come in and own companies and say, you shall do it this way. And this is our method. And our method is tried and true because it rakes in dough. And the only reason we know it rakes in dough is because of the metrics. And the metrics, we've forced these people to do these metrics and to fit into this mold. And look, we're able to produce X amount of widgets and X amount of dollars for either the stockholders or for our own, fun, sadistic enjoyment, versus the opposite of, look, let me manage this thing. Let me coach. Let me put the players where I need to put them. Let me train them the way they need to be trained. Let me get them the right tools. Let me move them on the field where they need to be moved. Let me bench the ones that need to be benched. Let's get rid of the dross we don't need. Let's bring on people that we do need. And when you control all that to the nth degree that you cannot change it, you get a quagmire of complete disillusionment, and everything grinds to a goddamn halt. And it does this every time. And I mean to tell you, I know that I'm a pro Navy guy. The Navy figured this out like 100 some odd years ago. Like they figured this out. And so those of us who spent time out to sea, especially, or working in good commands, you quickly saw like the zeros that were going to make it and the zeros that were not. The officers that were going to make it, and the officers that were going to not make it past lieutenant. Like they were going to make it to lieutenant and out the door they were going to go. The ones that made it to lieutenant commander or commander knew exactly how to manage. Every once in a while you get some screwball that would make it all the way to 05 or 06. Every once in a while. But for the most part, they really did control it right. So when I came out, after all these years in the military, I thought, man, if I could apply this in the civilian world, we can move mountains. And then you hit that, you're punch drunk when you come out. And then you hit that complete, oh, this is the way we do it. Oh, this is our culture. This is our corporate design. Oh, this is what we're thinking. And now the guy down the street and 2 doors down has a complete different philosophy, and he forces all his people to think that way. And pretty soon you got 1,000 different companies out here thinking 1,000 different ways, and some of them super successful, some of them completely unsuccessful. And even though you were like, I have some ideas, I have ways that I know we could do this. Now you have to fight that as well. And I mean to tell you, it's disheartening. Like
Yeah.
like it has taken me. Like I won't get back into managing and coaching folks. I just won't. I just absolutely won't. I mean, I'll do it on a small basis where I work at.
I thought we were starting a business doing that. Like we were telling everybody just a minute
the
ago.
fact is that you could, you have the same philosophy.
Yes.
And so as this moves forward, I don't have any problem working because I know I'm not going to go guardrail to guardrail in an organization that gives a shit about what's going on.
Yeah.
And when you're working in an organization that this is exactly the thin line you walk, and God help you if you go off of it.
Yeah.
And God help you if you help that person because they're off of it. And God help you if you didn't make your dollars or your monies or your metrics that week. It is killing. That corporate culture is killing this workforce. It is killing this industry and other industries.
One of the things that I think so many people lose sight of is that, so I'm going to give a silly analogy for a minute, but like, I sort of imagine if you were standing really close to a giant sculpture, and all of us are standing around this giant sculpture, but it's super huge. And so it's a big giant circle of people all around it, right? And so the view of the sculpture that you see is, only this big through your eyes, right? And that's going to be different than the person on the other side who sees something different, right? And so I'm busy saying, no, it's red and it looks like this, and somebody over here is like, no, it's not. It's blue, and it's actually plaid. And you're like, no, it's not. It's, and people are so busy arguing instead of just taking one step backwards and saying, what are you talking about? What's
Right.
blue? And if you just took a few steps backwards, you'd go, oh, I hadn't even looked around the corner. Yeah. Wow, that's cool. And then you can start to see how things come together. My point being is that we forget that, well, we don't. Okay, but people forget that you're looking at the world a little bit different than me. What Gage is seeing over here is a little bit different than what we see. And all of those have value. What he's saying in the field when he's installing something, and he's going, but this isn't coming together very well. And every time I try to use that wire nut, the friggin' breaks, and then I have to use another one. And how much extra time does that take? And nobody's listening. Okay, hopefully somebody is. But those are the kind of things that would take like nothing to fix that and make your world better by going, oh, is that one cheap? Okay, let's get something different. Poof, your problem solved, because what you're seeing is a real world problem, right? It's what you're living all the time. And so I think that the teams that work the best are the ones that actually have the like understanding of, you have a different perspective. So what is it you're seeing over there? What is it that you're running into? And if you're actually listening, you can make things so much more efficient.
See, and that's why the meeting the other night on Tuesday night went so well, because all of a sudden the people who were involved were going, well, what about this? How's that work? And you're like, I'm on it. That's great. That's a great idea.
I love that, because I love that.
And you're feeding that energy back in. So we looked up and it was like we're 45, 50 minutes into it. We're going, wow.
I know.
This was going to be a 30-minute meeting. Hey, this is what we're going to do. Everybody get along. But because of the way that you think and the way that you operate, we all got drawn in. And I was still proctoring a test on the side, going, answering questions for students and working with stuff. So was Jesse. But at the same point in time, I'm getting texts from these guys who are involved going, man, this shit's great. I'm like, I know.
Good.
That's why you're here. So, that whole process of coming together, I absolutely adore with you. And every time we've met, every conversation we've had, the folks that we talk to on a regular basis on our meetings, because we meet weekly, are all in the same boat. Yeah. We all enjoy each other's company. We all enjoy talking about
I know, it makes it really fun.
I know, I'm about ready to cry too. I'm like,
I know, but it's such a cool thing, because it's even the best thing about doing beta testing, though, is that, again, it's one thing, and I think far too often people get so hung up on like, oh, I designed this really great thing, and okay, cool, that's really pretty, Tracy, but like then you pick it up and you're like, well, this thing doesn't really, I'm having trouble figuring this out, or I'm like, I'm trying to move this around, and I'm like, no, it's perfect. I designed it, it's perfect, and you're like, well, but I mean, I'm trying to, and too often people get so hung up on, they just want to be right? So they're not listening because they don't really want the input. right?
No.
I spent a lot of time designing it. It's right.
Yep.
And so you're going to use it. And I mean, how often have you been told that in your job, right?
A lot.
Like, and here's a new program, and you're like, but it doesn't do what I need it to do over here. You're going to use it, and so I think that's one of the other things that I've always found so compelling. Yeah, damn it. I've always found so compelling is like, but how does that really work? And I always loved when the techs would take me out and go, Tracy, like, let's look at it. Okay. Yeah. Oh crap. How, particularly when I was working on fire alarm designs, right? And somebody would say, but you can't put it there. Well, why not? Well, the wall is really funky and there's like this firewall and come take a look at it. And we'd walk around and go, whoa,
but on the drawings,
what do you do with that,
good.
right? Exactly. But if I were being really arrogant, I would have been like, figure it out.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, because I trust them, and I know if they're telling me something isn't going to work, there's a reason.
Yeah.
So help me understand, and so let's solve it before you guys are all out there with equipment that isn't working, right? You can't install it because nobody bothered to look.
There's sometimes when
freaking firewall.
There's sometimes when I've seen that action. We had to put a fire panel that was mounted on the outside of a building, and the one we found. Matter of fact, I took pictures of it to teach with. This is not how you do not do it, is what I did.
They do not do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when it died, because it was inevitable, we had to replace it. We had to replace it with a cabinet that had a heater in it, because that's the code,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Well, it didn't fit in the same spot. And so unfortunately, it took 3 people, damn near a crane, to get this thing into place. So then a couple of months later, my own stepkid comes running through, and he's inspecting, and he goes, man, it takes a ladder to get to this thing. And he's like, I can't believe where they had to put this, and we did that. And so I told him the backstory. Almost want to put a little sign. The reason this is so high is because of this, right?
Right.
And we didn't. And I started explaining, he goes, oh, that makes sense.
Yes.
I'm like, but you wouldn't be aware. And literally, he had to put like a 4-foot ladder up to reach everything up in there, because the panel had to go so much higher. And I said it had to be up there because of the heater and all the other stuff that goes in it, and it's a bigger panel. And and it was like, we make it a point where I work at to leave, I call it breadcrumbs, notes.
Oh yeah, yes.
On my business card or on a piece of tape or something like that. This is what we found. If we found a ground on something, we'll put a piece of tape, I'll put grounded on it, this date, MJB. And, I've gone into panels like transponder or miniplex panels from the years ago, and there's like 15 pieces of red tape. That's how many times I've been in there troubleshooting, and each one was me with a different date. You can't even read them anymore. They're all faded, to help technicians the next time.
Absolutely. The next person in line. That's so funny. I was just talking to an old colleague and friend of mine, and he was talking about when he first got in the industry. So he moved into sales with me, but he had been a technician in the field to start. Mm-hmm. And so I loved when he was talking about a particular technician who he said, he just had a photographic memory, and he said, call me at any time. Mm-hmm. If you ever have a problem, you ever run into a panel you don't know, call me anytime. And he's like, I remember calling him at like midnight. I got out on this service call. I was looking at a panel, had no idea what it was. And he said, I call him up, and he's got like this photographic memory. And so he's like, okay, so the wire, so go out to here, and there's a sub panel over here. And he was like, whoa.
Yeah. Tapping into
Impress,
that.
Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. But the little notes are probably wiser. Then you don't get the call at midnight.
But oftentimes when I see something because we do this inside the programmer too. Like if I'm doing something and I'm saying I'm writing a program to do this, I'll leave a little note, even though that note's a permanent record.
Yeah.
It's I attempted to write this program using this, it didn't work. And now I'm trying it this way, you know what I'm saying? So so there's some, it's okay to admit that you're trying to make something work.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to throw that in. I think that I know that I'm fire centric, and I'm sure it drives all the non-fire people crackers.
Sorry, me too. I'm sorry. But I respect the rest.
I do.
Yeah,
I really do.
I
Matter of fact, my one of my buddies at work is doing access control, like head first into access control, and you can see him logarithmically learn on this system. He's super bright. I mean, he's super bright. We've interviewed him here before, and so it's fun to watch him watch him spread his wings.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what this guy touches. If it's dampers, if it's access control, if it's he's even getting a new license, he's getting a different license, electrical license above what we have. And it doesn't matter what the hell he touches, he's golden. He didn't think he is. He still thinks he's bad at it, but he's freaking great at it.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to sit back and watch him like literally spread his wings and become this mammoth technician. I mean,
I had an
excellent thinker,
I had fun. One of our technicians was a very shy, had just gotten in the industry, and over the years, like just very methodical, did some of the most beautiful panel terminations ever.
Yeah.
You never had to worry about walking away from something he'd done. It was always so meticulous and fabulous. And I remember watching him grow into this very established technician who could do very complex systems. And I'll never forget, he went out on a job for, it was actually the Transit Authority or Seattle, King County, something. It's been a while. But it was so funny because he was shy and a little nervous, but so capable. And the guy on site was first like, Tracy, I don't know about this guy. I'm like, no, trust me. Give him a chance. And it didn't take him long. All he had to see is a panel or two terminated, and watching what he was doing, he's like, whoa, he's really good.
This guy's a genius.
And so, everything calmed down, and he, and so but it was also pretty cool to see how far he'd come, and
nice.
What great work he did.
And I'm glad you're in this industry. I really am. I mean, I know that you're on the side of,
well, now I'm trying to I was kind of picture myself. I was always quite the mama bear. I can be kind of feisty too. I gotta say,
I still have scratches.
You did not ever criticize anybody on my team. I would put that bullet in front of me. No, hell no. You.
Oh, it's on you.
I was like, hell no. I always told everybody I would take a bullet for you. Please don't make me actually live that literally. I just want to say that publicly. But I would never let somebody attack anybody on my team. I will take the fall for anything.
Nice.
But I also thought that it was really important. And most of the time, because I was like, no, you don't get to do that. but I also think that that's a really important thing, is to look out for your team, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Again, it all rotates around the respect. Respect is just the key to every, a genuine respect,
and
right?
Keeping stuff
it's nothing
below
even.
you that doesn't need to go above, and keeping the shit that's above you from going down to the troops below you. And you're that person that's deciding what's going to filter down, what's going to filter back up.
I had somebody just recently was like, yeah, Tracy would take the bullet for you. And thank God you would say that. Damn yes. Hell yes, I would do that.
Can folks go and look at the Real Work site if they're interested in it?
So what I would love right? is, and what I would really love is, again, but hopefully anybody who knows me knows that I am incredibly idealistic, and I really want to do it right. I want it to work. I want it to work well for people. And so one of the things that I would love is feedback. I mean, I really want to know. I don't want somebody to, go in and set up a profile and look for a certification and not find it and stumble through and not tell me. I freaking want to know.
And your email's on there.
Easy,
there's a way
simple.
for there to
and you know what?
figure you out.
You guys are all cool. My email is just straight Tracy. It's Tracy. The right way to spell Tracy.
There's no I's?
Tracy, no I's. No little heart over the I. Yep, just Tracy with a Y.
Tracy with a Y.
At realwork.
At realwork.com.
It is that simple.
REALWORK.
Yeah,
realwork.com.
Because that's what this is, man. It's just freaking real work, right? And I really, truly want to know. I'm not looking for, please be nice, but at the same time, tell me. I want to know.
Good.
Because we can't really service people if we don't get if we're if we don't have all the data that you need, if it's not written the way you need it to be. There's a lot of things that are really important to hear about.
Nice.
Yeah, because
I super appreciate you coming down from Seattle.
Thank you.
I mean, to visit with us. I know you have other people down here you're seeing too, but
but you guys are more fun.
Honored.
You guys are always the highlight.
And you like our new studio fixing? Look at this.
I will say though, your last studio was so freaking cool.
Oh man, the last studio
but not to rub it in.
Awesome.
I don't want to rub any kind of salt in the wound. But
holy
cow, that was cool.
They might not.
Great
They
studio.
might not let us drink beer in here. I did not bring my dog. because I was like, that may not go over well.
Yeah.
He was like bummed.
But y'all are all, truly, you guys are the highlight of the trip.
Aw,
Yeah.
thank
No offense to anybody else I talked to.
Sweet. Well, thanks for coming down.
Thank you guys.
Real quick before
Yes, sir.
we go,
Before we go, do you want a
we
microphone?
did have. Here, I'm gonna
Yeah.
borrow yours.
Go for it.
We did have fan mail from back in August that we never read on the show.
August.
Because
Dude, it is-
dude, we're bad. We're bad at fan mail. The problem is
It's freaking May.
We don't get enough of it to justify looking at it all the time. But people have written into the show, and
Where
I spent
bullshit?
this-
Because what is
well,
the email address that they would write into the show?
halfwattpod at gmail.com.
Halfwattpod. Halfwattpod at gmail.com.
And I spent this last hour getting back to a lot of people, mostly apologizing for not checking our email back in November. And we did actually have someone that I wanted to read their thing on the show, and you'll see why. This gentleman, I'm not going to read their name because they didn't expressly say that we could. So
Can I guess?
Sure,
Okay.
if you want. But so if you do want us to read your name, or if it's okay to read your name, you do need to give us permission. It's just kind of a thing you do on podcasts. So this person says, I am an LEA apprentice in Scio, Oregon. Is that how you say it? Scio? Yeah. Working for Convergent. I do mostly access control and camera surveillance. I come into the industry with absolutely no experience, and I'm on my second year of the apprenticeship. I feel so blessed that I got into such a wonderful trade at such a great company. My colleagues recommended the podcast, and this is the first time I'm listening to the interview with Tracy.
Oh, no kidding.
Really excited about this stuff. The realwork.com website sounds really neat. I'm 24 and I wanted to be an electrician since I was in high school. I was homeschooled. I felt a little cheated when I realized that my Oregon license doesn't translate into much if I were to move to Oklahoma or a more southern state. I've even toyed with the idea of getting into high voltage license. Anyway, very excited about the industry as a whole, and I want to encourage as many young people to get into the trades as possible. So,
This is a big timer.
yeah. So,
like it.
Tracy, you're making waves out there for a lot of people. I just wanted you to see people are reacting. They're seeing the episode.
Well, we come from a very genuine place, guys. So
I'd
let's
say
make
so.
it go.
I'd say so. Wow.
Thank you.
We're one.
Thanks for listening to the Half Watt Podcast. We always want to hear from you, and we encourage you to email us at halfwattpod@gmail.com with questions or even your own stories. Funny, crazy, or praiseworthy, we want to hear it all. You can follow us on Instagram at halfwattpod to stay up to date on our feed. And be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And share us with a friend, the best way to help us grow. The Half Watt Podcast is a production of Now Hear This Studios.